Hey everybody, today is Sunday, December the 7th. I'm out here on Laurel River Lake today, the home pond. Probably not going to do a whole lot of fishing, don't have a whole lot of time for that before dark, but I've been wanting to do this video for a little bit now. It's too hot for that right now. I've been wanting to do this video for a little bit and I just haven't had time to get around to it, but instead of going home after church today and taking a nap like I usually do, I decided to come down here and knock this out. It's A-rig season. If you guys have watched any of my videos, especially fall, winter, spring videos, you know I throw an A-rig a lot. It is probably my #1 confidence bait from November through early to mid-April. Even a little bit later on into April sometimes, depending on the weather and where I'm at. And I've even threw it earlier than November. If you watched one of my Cedar Creek videos from back in September this year, I was had a day down there. It just looked like an A-rig day, and so I started throwing an A-rig and started catching fish. But I talked to some guys the other day. I was fishing, Ramp was talking, and I talked to a couple guys that, you know, they want to throw an A-rig, they like an A-rig, but they just don't have, they said they just don't have the confidence in it. They can't get bit. So the title of this video is Alabama Rig Masterclass. You know, I'm not a master at an Alabama rig or anything else when it comes to fishing, as you guys have seen from my videos, but I do throw an A-rig a lot. I catch a lot of fish on it. So I'm going to go over some of the different A-rigs that I have used, what I like about them, what I don't, what my favorite one is, and then I'm going to talk about some of the ways I fish it and try to show you on the live scope screen if I can record it. What I'm looking at when I'm fishing, and I'm not talking about targeting fish. I'm not talking about, well, might do that too if I can find some, but what I want to focus on really is throwing that A-rig and what I'm doing with it when I'm not specifically looking at a fish that I'm throwing at. So I'm going to start off going into the A-rigs that I have on hand, the ones that I've used, the ones that I'll tell you what I like about them, what I don't like about them, tell you what my favorite one is and why. The first one is this Strike King tour grade titanium. If Strike King would make a couple of changes to this, and they're not going to change it based on my opinion, I'm sure, nor do I blame them, but if they would change a couple of things, this would be my favorite. But there's a couple things that causes me to not throw it unless I don't have any other ones, and it's all tangled up here somehow or another, and I have to get it untangled to show you what I'm talking about. If I can't get it pretty quick, I'll just get another one out because I've got 2 of them. Tell me how the crap that happens. So what I really like about this is that those titanium wires, they don't bend. You know, you can wad them up, you know, put them back in the case, store them, whatever, get it out in there until they hang up like that, which they wouldn't do that obviously if you had baits on them. But I really like that titanium wire system they have there. It's, you know, I don't want to say indestructible, but it's probably pretty close. So I really like that, and I would love to throw that a lot more due to that. But the 2 things that keep me from throwing this one a lot is, #1, probably 7 times out of 10 when I cast this, the line gets all, you know, it ends up the line wrapping around the head or 2 or 3 of the wires during the cast, and you know, when it comes through the water all ganked up like that, you're not catching fish on it. I don't know why it does that. It may be something I'm doing. If you all know what I'm doing or have any idea what I'm doing to cause that to happen, let me know. But that has been my experience with this one. I have caught a lot of fish on this when I can keep it from tangling up during the cast. But most of the time when I cast it, the line gets all tangled up in it. The second thing that I don't like, and that is, this is not something that is specific to this particular A-rig. A lot of A-rigs have this. I don't, or most of them, all but one that I know of. I don't particularly like that snap to you know, to put your jig head on. Now that's, you know, like I said, all but one A-rig brand that I know of has a snap like that, but I don't like it. So, you know, I can't remember how much those are. They're not cheap, but they're not terribly expensive either. But good quality A-rig. Just a couple things that I don't particularly like about it. What did I do with the tube? All right, next is, this is kind of a finesse A-rig. It's from Three Brothers Baits. It is like a 3-inch, 3.5-inch, like a finesse type rig. I like the way that it's made with that head there. It doesn't have the you know, the plastic fish style head like the one I just showed you, so it doesn't get tangled up near as bad in the cast. This would be one, you know, that you would throw if you want to be a little more finessey, have like a smaller profile. I have thrown it, I've caught fish on it. It's a good quality A-rig. I like the way it's made. I like everything about it except the snaps to connect the or put the jig heads on. Again, you know, and that's personal preference. You may like that. If you do, that's great. I just don't. I'll show you what I do like in a minute when I get to the A-rig that has them. But that's a pretty good little A-rig right there. That finesse style A-rig from Three Brothers Baits, and they make some bigger ones too, that are you know, that are made just like this. So that's a, in my opinion, that's a good option if you don't mind the snaps. Put this one up. And the next one, this is by far the most expensive A-rig that I have, and I don't like it. Well, there's things I don't like about it. This is the Stealth A-rig, the clear. I think those are fluorocarbon. Don't hold me to that, but they say it's indestructible, and it's you know, I would tend to go with that. It's you know, it'd be hard to break one of them off. A couple things that I don't like about it is, if you see how close the arms are together, you don't get a big spread like you do, you know, on one that you can spread the arms out on. You know, I don't know if that matters. I don't know if it's a big deal, but I kind of wish those were farther apart, maybe spread out more. Those arms maybe spread out more to give that bait ball appearance, you know, kind of a wider spread. Don't know if it matters or not. That's just kind of what I have in my head. Another thing I don't like about it, again, is that it has the snaps for the to put the jig heads on. And again, if that's not a big deal to you, or if you like that, then you know, that's great. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't like having to fool with unsnapping them and snapping them every time I put a jig head on it. But the main thing I really don't like about this is, and the instructions to this with this say that when you store this, don't store it with the arms down like that, held down, because you know, it'll get memory in it and they won't spread out as good. Well, you know, when I put my I'm not going to take. I have a dedicated A-rig rod. An A-rig stays on it year-round, except for a short time in the summer when I'll throw glide baits on it too. I'll show you the rod in a minute, but 99% of the time, my A-rig rod has an A-rig on it year-round, and I don't want to have to take it off and hang this bait. That's how they recommend to store that bait, is hanging it like that right there. You know, so those arms don't get memory in them and they stay, you know, like they're supposed to be. I don't want to do that. You know, when I put my A-rig rod on my, or store my A-rig, it's stored like that on my rod, and then, you know, I can just bend the wires back out and go to town. But anyway, that rig right there is about 50 bucks. It is 50 bucks actually. So that by the time you put your jig heads and your swim baits on it, you're going to have 60 bucks, you know, that you're casting. And that, you know, I don't know. And you know, there isn't a bait out there that's made that you're not going to lose at some point in time or another. So that's kind of, you know, you got to keep that in mind. If you like that rig, you know, then it's a quality made rig. You're not going to have any arms break off of it. You know, in clear water situations, those clear wires, you know, I'm sure help. But anyway, it's not my favorite, but it's not a bad option either if you like it. One that I don't have on hand that I have used a lot, and I caught a walleye on Cherokee the other day and it broke one of the arms off of it. It was the last one of them I had. Is the Flash Mob Junior. There's really only two things I don't like about the Flash Mob Junior. Number one, it has the fish style head on it, kind of like the Strike King, and it does tend to kind of get tangled up every now and then. Not as bad as the Strike King one for me anyway. And the other has the snaps to connect the jig heads to. And it seems like the arms on it are a little bit easier to break off, but it's not near as expensive either as some of the other ones. So, you know, it's not a bad option. If that's what you want to go with, it'll work for you for sure. There's probably been more fish caught on that than any other A-rig, just because, you know, there's a lot of them, and like I said, they're, you know, fairly inexpensive as far as A-rigs go, so it's not a bad option. The next one, this is my favorite A-rig bait company, not this particular one I'm getting ready to show you, but this company, the Diamond Baits. Their A-rigs are my favorite. This one here is the 6.5 inch Diamond Mine, and it has 8 blades on it. And again, the head style, it doesn't have the big head on it, so it doesn't, for me anyway, it doesn't tend to get wrapped up as much in the cast. Here's what I like about Diamond A-rigs, and here's what I wish other companies would do. That right there is not a snap. You don't have to unsnap or snap anything when you go to put your jig head on it. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see that on the camera or not, but you just take your jig head, the eye of it, you run it on that right there, twist that around, don't get the hook tangled, and there you go. Take it back off same way. I love that design, and that is one of the main reasons that I always throw a Diamond A-rig unless I lose all of the ones that I have, and I don't have any on hand, which I have done. But anyway, this is the 6.5 inch, 8 blades. You know, I've got a buddy that this is his go-to rig. He likes those that bigger profile and the 8 blades. He catches a lot of fish on it. It's his confidence one, and I'm a big believer in confidence, having confidence in the bait you're throwing, because you're just gonna do better on it. You know, there'll be days that you won't catch any fish on it just because they ain't biting it, but day in and day out, if you have confidence in a bait, you're gonna do better with it. So that's the one he likes. Good option. But I have one of their other A-rigs that I have more confidence in, and it's the one that I throw 99.9% of the time, and it is the 4.5 inch Frenzy rig. It's got 4 blades. It's a 5-arm, 4-blade. Has the same style head on it, and it has the, I don't know, they're not snaps, whatever, that connector that's so much easier, in my opinion, to put your jig heads on. So that is what I throw. That is what I've got confidence in. I have caught a ton of fish on it. I have never broken an arm off of one of them, or had an arm break off of one of them. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen, because I'm sure it can. I'm sure it does. It's just not, I've not had it happen. So, and I've caught tons of fish on these. I've caught big stripers on them. I've caught walleye on them. I've caught, you know, tons of white bass on them on Douglas. Just a good rig. They're about 20 bucks, $19.99, something like that. So they're not the cheapest ones on the market, but they're not the most expensive either. As far as what jig heads I use, I don't get too wrapped around the axle on the jig heads. I just use cheap ones that are made by a local company here that I work with called CNS Lures. 99% of the time I throw an 1/8 ounce jig head on all of them, on all 5 of my arms, or 3 if I'm in Tennessee. Little 1/8 ounce jig head, them about $5 a pack from CNS Lures. Everybody and their mother's cousin makes jig heads, so you won't have any problem finding them, you know, local to you if you want to do that, or you can order them. What I do if I'm in Tennessee, with them. If I'm in, well, I don't want to take the bait off there. If I'm in Tennessee, I'll just take one of these, take my pliers, and I cut about that much off of the hook. That way I got a little bit of a straight shank coming out there. I can run it in there, and that'll be a dummy. You know, somebody might say that's wasteful or whatever, but you know, very seldom do you lose the unless you lose the whole A-rig, do you lose the, you know, the jig heads. So, you know, unless you lose the A-rig, you can keep them indefinitely, keep using them. You don't have to worry about the hook getting dull because you've got the hook off of it. So that's what I do. About $5 a pack for the CNS Lures brand that I use, and it's a light wire. I've never had it. You know, one thing I like about a light wire hook is if I get hung up, I can crank my drag down real tight, and most of the time I can straighten that hook out and pull that bait loose before I break the line. Not all the time, but most of the time. So that's what I use for that. Occasionally I'll throw, you know, some heavier, like a 3/8 or a 1/4 ounce heads on there if I really want to get that A-rig down there deeper, but 99% of the time I'm throwing that 1/8 ounce head. I have seen some guys that use the Strike King, the 1/8 ounce Strike King squadron style jig heads, and that's fine. They're a little heavier wire hook, so you know, you don't have to worry about fish, you know, straightening your hook out. If you want to crank that drag down tight and horse them in, you can certainly do that. They're probably a little more expensive, you know, but nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, it works just fine. But I just use the cheap ones. So that's where we're at on the jig heads. All right, I restarted my camera there. I'm on looping mode, and I didn't want to lose any footage, so I restarted so we wouldn't lose anything. Let's talk about rod, reel, and line. My A-rig rod that I won't say dedicated, because I do throw a swim bait on it occasionally, but not a whole lot. Not a swim bait, but a glide bait. My A-rig rod is the 7-foot 9-inch glide stick by Dixie Custom Rods. It's a 7.9 heavy, moderate, fast. In my opinion, it is the perfect A-rig rod. I love it. I've got 2 of them. One of them I use for big, you know, big heavy swim baits and glide baits, and you know, this one I will occasionally throw a glide bait on in the summertime, but most of the year it has an A-rig on it. The reel I use is a Shimano Tranx 200. Some people throw an A-rig on a bigger reel, like a Lew's Super Duty or a 300 series reel, and you know, that's probably what you want to do. But this 200 series Tranx has worked well for me. The Tranx is supposed to be a little beefier reel as far as the way it's, you know, its construction. To, you know, it handles a heavier bait better without wearing it out. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've thrown an A-rig a lot on it and not had any problems. I think they're about a couple $100, something like that, in that price range, but good reel. I've been well satisfied with it. Right now I have 20-pound Seaguar red label 100% fluorocarbon on here. Normally I throw my A-rig on monofilament, and I recommend doing that until you get really schooled at throwing an A-rig, really used to throwing it, because you know, a lot of times you throw out, you backlash, your reel stops, and pop, you know, it'll snap that fluorocarbon, that bait flying through the air will. So I recommend, until you get really comfortable throwing one, to throw it on monofilament. I would still be throwing it on monofilament, but I put fluorocarbon on this reel back in the summer when I was throwing a glide bait on it. But you know, you can get a 600-yard spool of the Berkley Big Game 20-pound monofilament for, I don't know, like $9 or $10, and it'll last you a long time. But if you want to throw it on fluorocarbon, obviously nothing wrong with that, but I would recommend at least 20 pounds, maybe 25. But so that's the 2 different lines that I throw it on. You know, the whatever swim bait you want to throw on one, I don't think that you really need to get all wrapped around the axle on that. Just whatever swim baits you like the best. I have a couple different ones that I use, or a couple different brands that I use. Obviously I use the Kitech, you know, Fat Impact. Depending on where I'm at, some lakes that I fish, they just tend to bite those Kitechs better. I don't know. I don't know why. normally when I can, because I always want to throw the CNS lures, paddle tail swim baits when I can. On this lake that I'm on right here, these CNS lures, paddle tails, are the only ones that I throw on an A-rig. Color just depends on the time of year and what the fish seem to be liking. But I was on Gunnersville back last winter, and I just couldn't get bit on this slimmer profile swim bait. I put some Kitex on, started hammering them. So, and when I'm on the TVA lakes, Douglas, Cherokee, maybe Norse, I don't know. Norse is a lot clearer, so I don't know, and I don't fish it as much. But that color right there and that swim bait right there, in my opinion, that's all you need. That color on that Kitex is the only swim bait you need on like Douglas and Cherokee. But that's just my opinion, which, you know, ain't worth a whole lot. But that's pretty much the only swim bait I throw on those two lakes. Now, what I will do though, I'll have 4 of those. Obviously, it's a dummy that doesn't have a hook in it. Obviously, in Tennessee, you're only allowed 3 hooks. So I'll have 4 of these. These are the 3.3s. I'll have that on the outside 4, and then I'll put a 3.8, something of a little different color in the middle. That is original sexy shad. Of course, I dip the tail in chartreuse, and again, I've talked about that before. I don't know if that makes a hill of beans worth of difference dipping that tail. I dip it pretty much in every swim bait that I throw. I'll dip the tail in chartreuse. Does it matter? I don't know, but it's a confidence thing for me, so I do it. But in the CNS lures, you know, I've used the 99% of the time, I'll use the 3.2 inch on the outside 4 and a 3.8 on the inside. I'll go over the knot that I tie, and I've showed this before on a video, but I'm going to show it again just in case. I think it is called an improved clinch knot. So I double the line, and don't make fun of me tying a knot here. I suck at tying knots, but push the line through the eye. So there you have double line going through the eye, just like if you were going to tie a Palomar knot. You got a double section of line going through that eye. I'm not really at the best angle for this because it's going to get tangled up. And then I will twist that around about 7 times. There's 7. And then you take this tag end, run it through the loop on the bottom. Make sure you go through both little eyes that'll be down there, and then moisten it and cinch it down. And that, for me, has been a really, really good, strong knot. Pretty simple to tie. Even as bad as I am at not tying, then you'll have 2 tag ends. You'll have this loop tag end to cut off, and then you will have your normal tag end. And there you have it. Now we're going to put our jig heads on here, and I'm going to do some casting at this point right here. We may catch a fish, but we may not. That's not the main goal of today. The main goal of today is to show you how I fish it, and I'll try to get some live scope footage. My live scope unit is a Garmin Ultra 126 SV. It's not the Ultra 2, it's just the older Ultra, so it doesn't, I don't think anyway. If somebody knows that I'm wrong here, let me know, because I'd love to be able to do screen recording on it, but I do not think it has that ability. I know the Ultra 2 does, and the GPS map units, but I don't think the original Ultra does. So I'm going to try to just record it on my GoPro and go from there. You know, and again, one thing I'll touch on is, you know, generally unless, like I said, I'm on Douglas on the outside 4, and Cherokee the outside 4, same color, that electric blue chartreuse or whatever it's called. But generally everywhere else, I'll put 2 different colors. I'll stagger them around the outside. I don't know if it matters. Whatever color you have confidence in, just put it on there. I don't really know that it matters a whole big lot. If you got a swim bait that you like and a color you like, throw it on there. It's probably going to work. So we got our swim baits on there. I'm going to restart the camera so we don't lose anything, and I'll show you. Alright guys, there's some fish. I was going to show you the first thing at the bank. We were throwing it at the bank, but look at that. I don't know if I can get that A-rig on them. Where'd my A-rig go? There it is. It's not on. Maybe it'll be close enough to them that they'll see it. I'm gonna try to record this. I don't know how well it's gonna do. Come on. It's definitely bass because there ain't no hybrids or stripers or nothing like that in here. It could be white bass. I got one chasing it. But I doubt it. I ain't seen no white bass in here in years. And they may not bite it, but I just want to show you guys. Or actually, I just wanted to try to catch these because they're out there roaming around. Oh, right there. I think that's probably largemouth. Yeah, I missed them. Where are we going? This would be a time that it would be best to have heavier heads on here because them fish are deep. And by the time that A-rig gets down there to them, they've moved on off somewhere else. There them fish are. Oh, cool. Cool. Alright. So you can see them fish out there, I hope anyway, at 70 feet out. And I hope I hit them. You can see my A-rig coming down right there. What I try to do, and we'll just pretend like there ain't no fish out there that I'm trying to catch. We're just pretending like I'm coming down the bank. What I try to do is I try to keep that A-rig a little bit up off the bank, off the bottom. And I do this even when I'm not targeting fish that I'm looking at. I do this a lot, especially this time of year. And I can't even, a lot of times I'm not even seeing fish on the screen. I'm not even seeing fish on the live scope. But I know there's probably some out there in a particular area. So I contour that bottom with that A-rig. And a lot of times, even though I can't see them, I know they're there. I just can't see them. And I'll make a cast, and I'll be watching that A-rig come down the contour of the bank, the bottom, whatever, keeping it up off bottom like I was talking about, just a little ways off the bottom. And I'll see a fish come up that I didn't even see on the screen. I'll see a fish come up. You want to hit at it right there. I'll see a fish come up off the bottom that I didn't even see and whack. Either hit it or swipe at it. There's one coming up off the bottom right there. And I've caught a lot of fish doing that. Now, obviously, you got to have live scope if you're wanting to see your rig up off the bottom. You can do it without live scope, you know. Throw it out there. Reel it at a speed, you know, that you think that you want to be. If you're making contact with the bottom all the time, you're reeling it too slow. If you never make contact with the bottom, you're reeling it too fast. The problem is, doing that, is you stand a chance of losing a lot of A-rigs. And they're expensive, takes a long time to tie them on. So, I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't do this right here, this way, with an A-rig, unless I can watch it on live scope, because I don't want to lose them. I don't want to, you know, either this A-rig here, by the time you buy the A-rig and the swim baits and the jig heads, you got 30 bucks in it. And I just, you know, I don't really want to lose $30 baits. So, you know, if I was fishing somewhere like Douglas in the wintertime, or Cherokee, you know, where it's mainly rock and, you know, not a lot of timber to get tangled up in, then I would do that. But here and anywhere you got, you know, a lot of wood in the water, brush piles, trees, just a lot of stuff that, you know, you could get an A-rig tangled up in. You know, obviously you can do it. It'll work. It'll catch fish, but I just, I'd rather not lose A-rigs. Come on, there they come, there they come. Come on, get it. One of y'all wants that, I know you do. But, so that's how I do that. I'm gonna show you again without jacking with these fish, maybe. If you've got live scope, cast that A-rig out there. You can see it falling down there. I'll try to keep it in the view here. And bring it in. I can see it there a little bit, hope you can. Bring it in to where you're just, you know, foot, 18 inches estimated right off the bottom like that. Just contour that bottom with it. All the way back. What that is. Maybe up over it in case it's a tree limb or something that I'm not seeing all of. All the way back to the boat. Just contour that bottom. There will be fish come up off that bottom that you don't even see until they come up. You'll catch a lot of fish like that. Again, if you don't have live scope, you can still fish an A-rig this way. You just, you know, you stand a chance of losing some, getting them snagged up. Just by feel, you know, keeping it close to the bottom by feel. And it will work. Once you get confidence in throwing an A-rig and catching fish on an A-rig, you will have one tied on all of A-rig season. Are there times that they won't bite it? Sure. There's times that they won't bite anything. But day in, day out this time of year, I have more confidence on an A-rig than I do pretty much any other bait. Is it my favorite thing to throw? Absolutely not. It's big, it's heavy, wears me out. Throw it all day, my shoulders hurt. But as far as if I had to pick one late fall, spring, or winter, early spring bait that I have more confidence in than anything else, it would be the A-rig. And right there is one reason why. Because it just works. They bite it. Decent little, that camera ain't even on. Anyway, decent little spot. Pretty little fish. Thank you, Lord. All right, guys. There's a lot of fish on this point. I may mess around here a minute, try to catch another one. But don't, you know, I don't want you to think that you got to have live scope to throw an A-rig and catch fish on. You do not. Absolutely do not. You just got to be careful, you know, about getting it hung up. Be mindful of that. You can, there's ways to rig those swim baits weedlessly, you know, that will be less likely to snag on you. That's not a bad idea if you're fishing around stuff that's going to get them tangled up. But so don't think that if you don't have live scope that you can't catch fish on an A-rig, because that is untrue. But anyway, like I was saying, is it my favorite bait to throw? No. I'd rather throw a crankbait. Look there, got it hung up. I would rather, I'd rather go down that bank over there, throwing a crankbait, put my trolling motor on about 2 or 3, and just start chunking and winding. That is my favorite way to catch them. An A-rig is big, it's heavy, it's aggravating to rig up, it's expensive to lose, but it daggone if it ain't effective. This time of year especially. So, you know, it is definitely worth the hassle of dealing with it, because it's a fish catcher. So that's kind of the way that I throw it when I'm not specifically targeting fish. Now I was targeting some fish there that were on the bottom there, but you get the idea. If you're fishing a bank, a point, you know, ledge, whatever, contour that bottom with that A-rig. Throw it out there and either watch it on live scope if you have it. If you don't have it, just reel it until, you know, at a speed that you feel confident that you are keeping it right up off the bottom, and you will catch fish, I promise you. Now the other way that I fish an A-rig, the other scenario that I fish it in, is that fishing it in open water, targeting bass. Either, you know, just roamers like I was trying to keep up with there a minute ago, or bass that are in shad. And it's very, very effective for bass in shad. Now just roamers like I was throwing a minute ago, it's been my experience that they are not, you know, unless they're just really out there hunting, feeding, you know, really turned on. Typically, or a lot of times, an A-rig will tend to scare them, in my experience. Not always. If they got their mat on and they're out there looking for something to eat and you bring one by, they'll hit it. But when fish are in shad balls, in and around shad balls, man, an A-rig is effective. I have caught so many that way. And, you know, back to the forward-facing sonar thing, you know, that's one of those techniques that I won't say that you gotta have forward-facing sonar, because, you know, you can, if the bait is up high in the water column, especially around the surface, you can see it. If you get up there, out here in this creek or whatever, and you see bait, you know, up close to the surface, obviously a fish busting in them, throw an A-rig out there, and you'll catch them. You know, if the bait is deeper in the water column, and it's one of those things that you're about going to have forward-facing sonar to be able to know. Well, yeah, I mean, you could idle through here on down scan, a side scan on your traditional sonar, and then find them, and you could fish them that way. It's a little more difficult, but it can be done. But you know, I just think that for the most part, fishing it like that has become a forward-facing sonar thing. But I wanted to come out and talk about an A-rig some, just because I heard some guys the other day talk about how they just didn't have confidence in an A-rig. And I hope this video helps give you some ideas of how to fish an A-rig and maybe get some confidence in it, because I'm telling you, man, there is just not much more, in my opinion, this time of year that will catch you more fish day in and day out than an A-rig. Fish just bite it. But I would show you some, fish around shad balls, but it's getting late. Probably don't have time to find any. I'll try to go back when I put this video together and find some footage from older videos where I'm around bait balls and catching them on an A-rig, and add that in this video. But like I said, guys, I hope this video helps. I hope if you don't already throw an A-rig, I hope that maybe this will kind of give you some ideas and get it sparked in you to go out there and try to throw it, because I promise you, you'll be glad you did. Once you catch a few fish on it and kind of get the hang of it, it will be something that you will definitely keep in your arsenal, because it is very effective. And got any questions for me, anything I can help you with, I'd be more than happy to. If you got any suggestions for me, if you think this is kind of video stupid, tell me, and we'll try not to do no more of them. But I just thought it might be something that kind of maybe help some people and give you some confidence to add the A-rig to your arsenal, help you catch some more fish. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna fish around here for a little bit, and may go over here and throw a crankbait on that bank for a minute before it gets too dark, and call it a day. God bless you all, and thank you for watching.